The star system of Proxima Centauri glowed red against the black canvas of space. Kate Langdon stood at the large viewing window of the human diplomatic compound. Her reflection showed a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and tired eyes. She had served as Earth's ambassador to the Valkyrian Empire for 3 years now. 3 years of careful words, fake smiles, and constant vigilance. "Another message from Earth, Ambassador," said Diane Miller, her chief communications officer. Diane was young, barely 30, with blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun. "President Bennett wants an update on the mining rights discussion." Kate sighed and turned away from the window. "Tell him it's not going well. The Emperor's advisors rejected our latest proposal. They want full access to Europa's ice fields with minimal compensation." The diplomatic compound housed 13 women. This was not by design, but by Valkyrian request. The aliens believed females were more suited to diplomatic roles due to their supposed natural submissiveness. Kate had explained repeatedly that human women were not submissive, but the Empire ignored this fact. In truth, Kate suspected they simply underestimated female diplomats, which gave her team a small advantage. "Should we prepare another counteroffer?" asked Maria Garcia, the legal advisor. She pushed her glasses up her nose and waited with a tablet in hand. "Yes, but I doubt it will matter," Kate replied. "I think the Emperor has already made up his mind. He wants those resources, and he's not used to hearing no." The Valkyrian Empire controlled over 200 star systems. Humanity, by comparison, had settled only 7 worlds, with Europa, a moon of Jupiter, being their most valuable for its vast water resources. When humans had discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, they had entered a galaxy already dominated by the Empire. So far, relations had been peaceful, if tense. Outside the compound window, the setting sun cast long shadows across the rocky landscape. Proxima Centauri B was a border world, one of the first human colonies, and now the meeting point between Earth and the Empire. Kate had a bad feeling about the silence from the Imperial Palace. It had been 3 days since their last communication. "Ambassador, look," called out Susan Hayes, the security chief. She pointed at the scanner display. "Ships entering orbit. A lot of them." Kate moved quickly to the security station. The scanner showed 5 large vessels moving into position above the compound. These weren't the usual diplomatic ships. These were warships. "Contact Earth," Kate ordered. "Now." "Communications are being jammed," Diane reported, her fingers moving quickly over her console. "I can't get through." "Activate the emergency beacon," Kate said. She kept her voice calm despite the fear building in her chest. "Everyone, prepare for emergency protocols." The compound had no real defenses. It was a diplomatic mission, protected only by treaties and agreements. Kate had always known those protections were thin, but she had hoped they would hold. The building shook as a transport ship landed outside. Through the windows, Kate could see armored Valkyrian soldiers marching toward the entrance. The aliens stood 7 feet tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their armor gleamed silver in the fading light. "They're bypassing the airlock protocols," Susan reported, her hand on her sidearm. The small weapon would do little against Valkyrian armor, but she stood ready anyway. Kate gathered her staff in the main hall. 12 women looked to her for guidance, for safety. She had none to give. "Whatever happens," she told them, "remember that we represent Earth with dignity. We are not afraid." The door slid open. 20 Valkyrian soldiers entered, weapons raised. Behind them walked a tall figure in ornate armor, General Vaxor, the Emperor's right hand. "Ambassador Langdon," the general said, his voice translator, making his words flat and cold. "By order of Emperor Zarkesh, you and your staff are under arrest for crimes against the Empire. What crimes? Kate demanded. We have diplomatic immunity under the Treaty of Seoul. The general made a sound that might have been laughter. The treaty is void. Your government's refusal to grant rightful access to Europa's resources constitutes an act of defiance against the Empire. Refusing a trade agreement is not a crime, Kate said. She stepped forward, putting herself between the soldiers and her staff. I demand to speak with the Emperor. You will, Vaximer replied. The entire galaxy will hear your conversation. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Alan Bennett and his advisors watched the emergency beacon signal from Proxima Centauri. The signal carried no message, only an alert that the diplomatic compound was in danger. Get me visual, the president ordered, and ready the fleet. Sir, the nearest ships are 3 days away at maximum speed, said General Susan Wright, head of Earth's Defense Forces. She was a tall woman with gray hair and the stern face of someone who had seen combat. Whatever is happening there, we can't stop it. Try hailing them again, Bennett ordered. The communications officer shook his head. No response, sir. But we're picking up a broadcast on all frequencies. It's coming from the Empire. Put it on screen, Bennett said. The large display at the front of the command center flickered to life. It showed an open plaza on Proxima Centauri B. In the center stood Kate Langdon and her 12 staff members, surrounded by Vulcarian soldiers. Across from them, on a raised platform, sat Emperor Zarkesh himself, a massive figure with 6 arms and skin the color of burnished metal. People of Earth, the Emperor's voice boomed through the translator. Your representatives have refused the reasonable demands of the Empire. Such defiance cannot be tolerated from a minor species. Today, you will learn respect. President Bennett stood up. Open a channel. I need to speak to him now. They're blocking all incoming transmissions, sir, the officer replied. On the screen. Kate Langdon stood straight, her face showing no fear. Emperor Zarkesh, I urge you to reconsider this action. Earth wishes peace with the Empire, but we will not be bullied or threatened. Your species does not understand its place in the galaxy, the Emperor replied. Perhaps you never will, but others will learn from your example. He raised one of his 6 hands. A soldier handed him a device that glowed with purple energy. In the command center, President Bennett watched helplessly. General Wright moved to stand beside him, her face grim. Get our ships moving now, Bennett ordered. All of them. On the screen, Kate looked directly at the camera, as if she could see Earth watching. Remember this, she said clearly. Remember what the Empire truly is. The Emperor activated the device. A field of purple energy surrounded Kate and her staff. For a moment, they stood frozen in place. Then, as the energy field intensified, their bodies began to break apart at the molecular level. There was no blood, no screaming, just the silent, horrible sight of 13 women dissolving into nothing before the eyes of humanity. The broadcast cut to the Emperor's face. Let this be a lesson to Earth and all who would defy the Vulcarian Empire. You exist by our tolerance. Never forget that. The screen went black dot in the command center. No one spoke. The silence stretched for a full minute, broken only by the soft beeping of computers. General Wright finally spoke, her voice tight with controlled rage. They think us weak because we value peace. President Bennett turned to face her, his eyes hard. Call the United Nations Security Council. Call every world leader. As of this moment, Earth is at war. General Wright nodded. They will learn that peace was our choice, not our necessity. Outside the command center, life continued as normal. People went to work. Children played. Couples fell in love. None of them knew that everything had just changed. None of them knew that across the stars, An empire had made the worst mistake in its 10,000-year history, that it had made humanity angry. 24 hours after the executions, the United Nations Assembly gathered in New York. The emergency session was unlike any in human history. Representatives from every nation sat in grim silence as President Bennett took the stage. His face showed the strain of a sleepless night, but his voice remained strong. "Yesterday, we all witnessed an act of barbarism," he said. The large screens behind him showed the faces of the 13 women who had died on Proxima Centauri b. Ambassador Langdon and her staff were murdered, not for any crime, but to teach us a lesson. The Vulcarian Empire believes that lesson is submission. They are wrong. The assembly hall remained silent. There were no interruptions, no political grandstanding. For perhaps the first time, Earth stood truly united. We sought coexistence. They answered with atrocity, Bennett continued. As of this moment, humanity stands together against an enemy that has gravely miscalculated our resolve. The Empire has mistaken our restraint for weakness. They will learn their error. The vote that followed was unanimous. Earth would go to war. In orbit above Mars. Captain John Mitchell received new orders. His ship, the Earth defense vessel Hyperion, had been disguised as a research vessel for 3 years. Now that disguise would come off. He gathered his crew. On the main deck. "The time for hiding is over," he told the men and women under his command. "Today we reveal what we truly are." The Hyperion's outer hull began to change. Panels shifted, revealing weapon ports and armor that had been hidden beneath a civilian facade. 7 other ships in nearby space did the same. What had appeared to be a small research fleet was now a battle group. Captain Mitchell studied the tactical display. Set course for the Proxima Centauri border. Maximum speed. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Olivia West, moved to stand beside him. "Sir, the Valkyrians outnumber us 20-1. "Numbers aren't everything, Lieutenant," Mitchell replied. "We've been preparing for this possibility for years. The Empire just doesn't know it yet." Deep beneath the surface of the moon, Dr. Nancy Coleman entered her security code into a massive vault door. The Prometheus project had been her life's work for the past decade. Behind the door lay weapons technology that humanity had developed but never deployed out of ethical concerns. "Open project files," she told her assistant, Gary Peters. "Authorization, Coleman Alpha 9. The computer screens lit up, showing designs for weapons far beyond what Earth publicly acknowledged possessing. Quantum disruptors, gravity lenses, nanite swarms. "Begin production on all systems," Dr. Coleman ordered. "Priority level maximum." Gary looked concerned. "Some of these systems haven't completed final testing." "We no longer have that luxury," Dr. Coleman replied. She pointed to a small photograph on her desk. She had been friends with Kate Langdon since college. "The Empire has forced our hand." Across Earth, manufacturing facilities began to change production. Car factories retooled to build armor plating. Electronics companies switched to making targeting systems. Shipyards that had been building space. Freighters now constructed warships. At recruitment centers around the world, lines stretched for blocks. Young men and women waited patiently to enlist. News outlets showed similar scenes from every human colony. The Vulcarians had studied human history, but failed to understand a crucial pattern. Nothing united humanity like a common enemy. In Washington, D.C., Major Frank Rivera worked with his team to analyze Imperial communications. The intelligence center was a hive of activity, with analysts working around the clock to find any advantage. "Their encryption is complex, but not unbreakable," Frank told General Wright during our inspection. "We've been monitoring their channels since first contact. They don't know how much we understand." General Wright nodded. "What have you learned?" Frank displayed a series of intercepted messages on the main screen. They consider us technologically inferior and tactically predictable. Their military doctrine expects us to respond with a direct assault on their nearest outpost. And what do you recommend instead? Wright asked. Frank smiled. Something they won't expect. On the colony world of New Eden, civilians boarded evacuation ships. Governor Pamela Clark supervised the operation with calm efficiency. When an elderly man questioned why they had to leave their homes, she answered honestly, "Because this colony will soon be a target, and we're going to let the Empire think they've won here." The man looked confused. "You're using our world as bait." "I'm using it as a trap," Governor Clark corrected. "Now please board the ship, sir. We have 3 days to make this place look normally populated while being completely empty." In orbit, above Earth, the first of the new warships prepared for launch. The EDV Retribution was larger than any vessel humans had previously built. Its captain, Lavra Keyes, inspected the bridge with careful attention to detail. "Weapon systems?" She asked her weapons officer. "Online and calibrated, Captain," he replied. "Including the new systems from the Prometheus project." Lavra nodded. "Navigation?" "Course plotted through the new jump points. The Empire doesn't know these routes exist." Lavra took her place in the command chair. Around Earth, 50 similar ships did the same. The fleet that humanity had hidden from the galaxy was finally revealing itself. In his private office, President Bennett met with the heads of Earth's most secretive program. The 3 people who entered used no names and left no records of their visit. "Are your people in position?" Bennett asked. The woman who led the group nodded. "We have operatives on 17 Imperial worlds, including 3 core planets. They've been in place for years, living as merchants, teachers, and maintenance workers. They're ready to activate when ordered." "And the subjugated species?" Bennett asked. "Will they help us?" "Many will," the woman replied. "The Empire has no shortage of enemies. They just needed someone to show them rebellion was possible." Bennett looked out his window at the nighttime sky. Somewhere up there, the Valkyrian Emperor believed he had taught humanity a harsh lesson. He didn't realize that the lesson had backfired. "Begin Operation Langdon," Bennett ordered. "It's time to show the Empire what happens when you awaken a sleeping giant." The woman nodded. "My agents are already moving, Mr. President. The first phase begins tonight." As she left, Bennett turned to a small memorial he had placed on his desk. 13 candles for 13 women. He lit them one by one. "We will remember," he said quietly, "and they will never forget." Across the stars, the greatest empire in the galaxy continued its normal operations, unaware that everything was about to change. They had killed 13 humans and expected submission. Instead, they had ignited a war unlike any they had ever fought. Humanity was coming. The Valkyrian outpost on Sirius 4 represented everything the Empire stood for. Massive shipyards orbited the planet, building the vessels that maintained Imperial control across hundreds of star systems. The station itself was a marvel of engineering. A city-sized structure protected by quantum phase shields considered impenetrable. Commander Drekfall stood on the observation deck, watching his workers assembled a new battle cruiser. As the 3rd highest-ranking Valkyrian in the system, he had received reports about the human declaration of war. He found the idea amusing. "Have the humans made any moves yet?" he asked his aide. "No, Commander. Our long-range scanners detect no ship movements near their colonies. Their communications suggest they are still organizing their response." Drekfall made a sound of satisfaction, as expected. "They need time to gather courage. Perhaps they already regret their declaration." The aide hesitated. "Sir, some analysts suggest we should not underestimate them." "Analysts worry too much," Drekfall replied. Humans have been in space for barely a century. The Empire has ruled the stars for 10,000 years. What could they possibly do that we haven't seen before? At that moment, in a laboratory on Earth, Dr. Lisa Foster activated her life's work. The quantum entanglement transportation system had remained Earth's most closely guarded secret. Unlike conventional travel, which required ships to move through space, KET could transport matter instantaneously between 2 points, regardless of distance. The system had limitations. It required enormous energy and could only transport to locations that had been precisely mapped. For 3 years, human research vessels had been mapping key Imperial installations, while appearing to conduct scientific surveys. Dr. Foster checked the coordinates one final time. Sirius 4 station is locked in. Transport bay is ready. Colonel Steve Harrison and his Special Forces team stood in the transport chamber. 300 men and women in black combat armor, each carrying weapons that the Empire had never seen before. "Remember your training," Harrison told them. "We'll have the element of surprise, but only for a few minutes. Make them count." Dr. Foster began the countdown. Transport in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The team disappeared in a flash of blue light. On Sirius 4, alarms suddenly blared throughout the command center. Drekfall turned to see humans materializing directly on the bridge. Before he could shout a warning, a soldier fired a pulse that temporarily disabled his neural functions. The commander collapsed, conscious but unable to move. Similar scenes played out across the station. Human soldiers appeared inside shield control, weapons bays, and engine rooms. The Empire had prepared for attacks from outside their shields. They had no defense against enemies who simply bypassed them entirely. "Command center secure," Harrison reported through his comlink, moving to Phase 2. Across the station, Valkyrian defenders rallied. They outnumbered the humans and fought fiercely to protect their outpost. But the humans moved with precision and purpose, using weapons that could penetrate Valkyrian armor with ease. In the main hangar, Lieutenant Paul Garcia led his squad toward a specific target, a communication array that connected the station to the Imperial network. Unlike the other teams, they didn't destroy it. "Plant the package," Garcia ordered. A soldier attached a small device to the array's main processor. The device contained a virus designed by programmer William Scott, Earth's leading expert on Imperial technology. It would spread throughout the Imperial network, targeting weapon systems with a simple shutdown code, Langdon. 6 hours after they appeared, the human forces had secured the entire station. Casualties were minimal on both sides. The humans had used stunners and non-lethal weapons whenever possible. Colonel Harrison stood in the command center, looking down at the still paralyzed Commander Drekfell. "You're probably wondering how we did this," Harrison said. "The answer is simple. While you watched our ships, you never thought to look for other methods of travel." The Valkyrian could only stare in helpless rage as Harrison continued. "We're leaving now. Your people will regain movement in about an hour. When Imperial reinforcements arrive, make sure they understand one thing. We could have killed everyone on this station. We chose not to." Harrison activated his comlink. "All teams, prepare for extraction." 300 human soldiers gathered their Valkyrian prisoners in the main hangar. The QET system couldn't transport them back. It was one way only due to the power requirements. Instead, they boarded the station's own shuttle's dot as the last shuttle prepared to depart. Harrison addressed the prisoners. "Your commander will be able to move soon. Tell him we've left him a message." The human forces vanished into space, taking with them key parts of the station's weapon systems and engine cores. They left the life support and basic functions intact. When Imperial reinforcements arrived 12 hours later, they found the outpost abandoned by the humans, but still structurally intact. On every screen throughout the station, a message repeated. 12 women. Remember their names. Admiral Zhen Kar, commander of the Imperial Fleet, ordered an immediate security sweep of the station. His technicians found no bombs, no sabotage. Of life support systems, nothing that would threaten the lives of those aboard. The humans just left, Commander Drekval explained, still shaken by the experience. They could have destroyed us completely, but they just took what they wanted. And left. Admiral Zhen Kar frowned. What did they take? Weapons components. Engine parts. Data cores. Drekval hesitated. And they did something to our communication array. The Admiral immediately ordered the array disconnected, but it was too late. The virus had already spread through the Imperial network. On 17, Core Worlds, Imperial weapon systems suddenly displayed the same message before shutting down. Langdon. On the Imperial Throne world, Emperor Zarkesh received the news with growing rage. How did they penetrate our defenses? Where were our fleets? His advisors had no satisfying answers. The humans had not used ships. They had simply appeared inside the station, as if by magic. Find their weakness, the Emperor demanded. Prepare a counterattack. I want their colony on New Eden destroyed. As an example, as Imperial ships moved toward the human colony, they had no way of knowing they were heading into a trap. No way of knowing that New Eden had been evacuated days earlier. No way of knowing that Captain Lara Keys and the EDV, Retribution, waited with a fleet of ships, hidden by technology the Empire didn't know existed. The Valkyrian Empire had ruled the stars through force and fear. They had never faced an enemy who fought like humans. An enemy who planned meticulously, who struck from unexpected directions, who showed mercy when they could have shown none. They were about to learn that. The execution of 12 women had awakened something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Admiral Zhen Kar led the Imperial assault fleet toward the human colony of New Eden. 30 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons primed and ready. The Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominance, reviewing the attack. Plan. Sensors show minimal defenses. His second-in-command reported. The humans appear to have only a small orbital station and a few patrol ships. Zhen Kar nodded. He was the Empire's most decorated commander, with 300 battles to his name, and not a single defeat. He had counseled caution after the Sirius IV incident, but the Emperor had demanded immediate action. The colony has approximately 50,000 humans, the tactical officer added. Our bombardment will eliminate most structures within the first hour. Proceed as planned, Zhen Kar. Ordered, though something bothered him about the situation. The humans had shown surprising capability at Sirius IV. Why would they leave a colony so poorly defended? The Imperial fleet entered the New Eden system and moved toward the third planet. A few human ships in orbit fled without firing a shot. Zhen Kar's suspicions grew. Scan the planet thoroughly, he commanded. I want to know exactly what we're facing. The scans showed normal activity. Human life signs appeared in the expected locations: the main settlement, outlying farms, mining, operations. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Launch a scout ship, Zhen Kar ordered. I want visual confirmation before we begin bombardment. The small scout ship descended toward the main human settlement. It transmitted images of buildings, roads, vehicles moving about, people walking on streets. Something is wrong, Zhen Kar said quietly. Magnify those images. The enhanced pictures revealed the truth. The people were holographic projections. The moving vehicles were automated drones. It's a trap, Zhen Kar realized. Full reverse. Get us out of this system. But it was too late. All around the Imperial fleet, space itself seemed to shimmer as hundreds of small objects suddenly appeared. The humans had developed a technology that masked the energy signatures of mines, making them completely invisible to Imperial sensors until activated .at. The same moment, a human fleet materialized behind them. The EDV Retribution led 20 warships in attack formation. They had been there all along, hidden by a cloaking system the Empire had never encountered. Captain Lavra Keyes opened a channel to the Imperial flagship. "Admiral Jean Carr, this is Captain Keyes of Earth Defense Forces. Your fleet is surrounded. Power down your weapons." On his bridge, Jean Carr saw the tactical display light up with hundreds of human ships appearing all around his fleet. They had walked into a perfectly executed ambush. New Eden was evacuated 3 days ago, Captain Keyes continued. "We knew. You were coming. You still don't understand what you're fighting." Jean Carr respected worthy opponents, and the humans had proven themselves to be exactly that. "All ships, hold position," he ordered. "Do not fire unless fired upon." To Captain Keyes, he responded, "You have placed us in a difficult position, Captain. What are your terms?" "Surrender your fleet intact," she replied. "Your crews will be treated according to Earth's conventions on prisoners of war. No harm will come to them." Before Jean Carr could answer, one of his ship captains broke formation. The Imperial cruiser Devastator turned and fired on the human vessels. 3 human ships took damage before the Devastator suddenly lost power. The Langdon virus had spread further than the Empire realized. The human fleet responded with precise attacks that disabled, but did not destroy the remaining Imperial ships. Their weapons cut through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. Within an hour, the battle, if it could even be called that, was over. 28 Imperial ships were captured intact. Only 2 had been destroyed, and those only after. They attempted suicide runs against the human fleet. Admiral Jean Carr stood on the bridge of the Retribution, now a prisoner of war. Captain Keyes treated him with surprising respect. "You fight differently than I expected," Jean Carr admitted. "How? Did you expect us to fight?" Keyes asked, with rage, with vengeance. The Admiral studied her. "Your people could have destroyed my entire fleet. Why didn't you?" "Because we're not fighting for vengeance," she explained. "We're fighting to end this war as quickly as possible, with minimal loss of life. Destroying your fleet wouldn't accomplish that goal." Meanwhile, on 3 core Imperial worlds, seemingly ordinary human merchants revealed themselves as deep cover operatives. Agent Kevin Murphy had lived on the Imperial capital world for 7 years, running an import business that catered to Valkyrian nobles. No one suspected that the friendly, slightly overweight human was actually Earth's most skilled intelligence officer. Tonight, he activated his network. 20 humans across the capital city accessed hidden communications equipment and sent encoded signals to members of subjugated species who had been waiting for this moment. The Boreans were the first to rise up. Once a proud warrior race, they had been conquered by the Empire 3 centuries ago and used as manual labor. When Imperial guards at the main power plant found themselves locked out of the control systems, they discovered Borean workers armed with weapons smuggled in by human operatives. Similar scenes played out across 17 Imperial worlds. The humans had spent years building underground resistance networks among the species conquered by the Empire. Now, those networks activated simultaneously. Back on his throne world, Emperor Zarkesh raged at his advisors. How is this possible? How can a primitive species coordinate attacks across our entire territory? Admiral Jean Carr, second in command, approached the throne, bowing deeply. "Your Radiance, I bring news from Admiral Jean Carr." "Where is the Admiral?" the Emperor demanded. "Captured, Your Radiance." His entire fleet was lost at New Eden. The Emperor's rage was terrible to behold. Impossible. Jean Carr has never been. Defeated, he has sent a message, the officer continued, presenting a data crystal. He recorded this before his capture. The Emperor played the recording. Admiral Zhen Kar's face appeared, looking grave. Your Radiance, I have failed you, but I must share what I have learned. We have gravely misjudged the humans. They are not fighting for vengeance. They speak of never again, an absolute deterrence. Their goal is not to destroy us, but to ensure we can never threaten them again. I recommend immediate diplomatic. The Emperor smashed the crystal before the message finished. Prepare. All fleets. I want Earth reduced to ash. His chief scientist stepped forward nervously. Your Radiance, we have a problem. The weapon systems on our core worlds are not responding. Something has infected the central network. The humans did this, the Emperor hissed. Find a way to fix it. As the Imperial Court scrambled to respond to the crisis, rebellion spread across the Empire. Species that had been conquered generations ago saw an opportunity for freedom and seized it. The mighty Valkyrian Empire, which had stood unchallenged for 10,000 years, found itself fighting enemies on multiple fronts. And still, the humans advanced methodically, capturing Imperial outposts and freeing subjugated worlds. They destroyed only what they had to and offered surrender, terms to every Imperial force they encountered. The Empire had expected a primitive species seeking revenge. Instead, they faced an enemy fighting with purpose and restraint, an enemy that had prepared for this war long before the first shot was fired. 6 months after the execution of Ambassador Langdon and her staff, the mighty Valkyrian Empire stood on the brink of collapse. Their fleets were scattered or captured. Their communications remained compromised. More than 30 formerly subjugated. Worlds had declared independence, forming their own alliance against imperial rule. Emperor Zarkesh sat alone in his throne room. Once, hundreds of advisors and nobles would have filled this space, competing for his attention. Now, only his most loyal guards remained. The palace shook occasionally from distant explosions as fighting continued in the outer districts of the capital city. Your Radiance, a guard approached, bowing deeply. A human ship has entered orbit. They are requesting permission to land at the palace. One ship? The Emperor asked in disbelief. Yes, Your Radiance. A small transport with only a single passenger, according to their transmission. The Emperor laughed bitterly. Either very brave or very foolish. Let them land. I wish to see what kind of human comes alone to the heart of the Empire. The guard hesitated. The human claims to be an emissary with final terms. She says her name is Dr. Helen Martinez. Zarkesh considered this. A lone female human coming to deliver terms was either a terrible insult or a sign of remarkable confidence. Either way, he was curious. Escort her here, under heavy guard, he ordered. Dr. Martinez entered the throne room. The Emperor was surprised by her appearance. She was a small woman with gray hair, perhaps 60 years old by human standards. She wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, and walked with a slight limp. She looked more like a scholar than a warrior. Emperor Zarkesh, she said, bowing slightly. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. The Imperial Guard stood ready, weapons trained on the human visitor. The Emperor gestured for her to approach the throne. You come alone to deliver terms, he said. Are all humans so careless with their lives? I come alone because only one person is needed to speak truth, Dr. Martinez replied. And I come unarmed to show that we seek an end to bloodshed, not its continuation. How did you penetrate our defenses? The Emperor demanded. We were always here, Dr. Martinez said simply. Humanity sought peace, studied your culture, learned your technologies, and prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. You chose the worst. The Emperor's 6 hands tightened on the arms of his throne. You would destroy an empire that has stood for 10,000 years over the deaths of 12 humans. 13, Dr. Martinez corrected. Ambassador Langdon and 12 staff members. And no, we would not destroy an empire over 13 lives, no matter how precious they were to us. She stepped closer, seemingly unafraid. You destroyed your empire, Emperor Zarkesh. You destroyed it through arrogance, through cruelty, through the belief that power gives you the right to dominate others. We are simply ensuring it never happens. Again, one of the guards moved to strike her for her insolence, but found his weapon suddenly too hot to hold. He dropped it with a cry of pain. Throughout the throne room, the same happened to every guard. None could raise a weapon against this unarmed human. What is this trickery? The Emperor demanded. Nanotechnology, Dr. Martinez explained. They've been in your palace for years, dormant until needed. We could have used them to kill you at any time, but that was never our goal. She produced a small device that projected a holographic document. These are our terms. They are not negotiable, but they are, I believe, fair. The Emperor read the terms with growing disbelief. The Empire would stand trial for war crimes before a galactic tribunal. The imperial hierarchy would be dissolved, and all subjugated worlds freed to determine their own futures. The Valkyrian people would retain their homeworld and a small cluster of colony systems, but their days of empire were over. You expect me to sign my empire's death warrant? He asked. I expect you to save your people, Dr. Martinez replied. The alternative is the continuation of a war you cannot win. How many more Valkyrians need to die before you accept reality? The Emperor stood, towering over the human woman. For a moment, it seemed he might strike her down with his bare hands. And slowly, he sank back onto his throne. How? He asked, his voice suddenly tired. How did a species we considered primitive defeat us so thoroughly? Because you saw only what we wanted you to see, Dr. Martinez said. You saw our peaceful overtures and thought us weak. You never asked why a species with our history of warfare chose peace. You never considered that we had mastered war so thoroughly that we preferred to avoid it until given no choice. 1 year after the executions, representatives from 36 formerly subjugated species and humanity gathered on Proxima Centauri B. A memorial now stood where Ambassador Langdon and her staff had died. It was a simple structure, 13 pillars of white stone, each bearing the name and image of one of the women who had died there. President Bennett addressed the gathering. Unlike a year ago, his face showed no anger, only solemn determination. We gather today to remember 13 brave women who gave their lives in service to peace, he said. Their deaths marked the beginning of a conflict none of us wanted, but all of us were prepared to fight. From humanity's darkest moment came the light of freedom for countless worlds. We move forward not in vengeance, but in vigilance. The former territories of the Valkyrian Empire had reorganized into the Galactic Confederation, with each species given equal representation in a central council. Earth had declined a leadership role, accepting instead a position as peacekeepers and mediators. General Susan Wright, now serving as Earth's representative to the Confederation, stood beside Admiral Jen Carr. The former Imperial commander had become an unexpected ally in the transition, working to convince his people to accept the new reality. Your species continues to surprise me, Jen Carr admitted. You won a total victory, yet you seek no reparations. No territories, no special status. We fought for security, not conquest, General Wright replied. Humanity has no desire to rule others. We only wish to ensure that what happened here never happens again. In the shadows at the edge of known space, the last Imperial loyalists watched and waited. Some dreamed of restoring the Empire to its former glory. But with each passing day, Those dreams faded. They had witnessed humanity's response to a single act of aggression. None dared imagine what would happen if they provoked Earth again. The last transmission from the former emperor, now living in exile on the Valkyrian homeworld, was simple. Let them be. We awoke something ancient and terrible that had been sleeping beneath a mask of peace. We are fortunate they showed mercy when victory was theirs. On Earth, life gradually returned to normal. The war machines were dismantled. The shipyards returned to building vessels of exploration rather than destruction. But humanity never forgot. In schools across Earth and its colonies, children learned the names of 13 women who had given their lives for peace, and how. Their deaths had changed the galaxy forever. The Empire had executed women. Humanity had answered with total war. And in victory, they had chosen mercy, perhaps the most unexpected response of all.